Good morning, everybody. My name's Tom Leary. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations for HIMSS, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this morning's session. And I have the distinct pleasure of being the moderator for this very distinguished panel. And as you look across the Interoperability Showcase, about 8 months ago, the VA said we really want to talk about our role in care coordination and interoperability, and they came to us, and you'll see their presence here in the Interoperability Showcase has grown and is telling the story. So as part of this morning's discussion, we of course know that the health and safety of veterans is one of the nation's highest priorities. The VA is committed to providing seamless care for veterans, including access to a complete electronic health record and shared, transparent care pathways. VA is moving toward a single common system by adopting an electronic health system that I'm sure we'll get a little bit of discussion about today. From the veteran's perspective, having a common system will provide a single accurate lifetime health record. It will also result in improved patient care and safety. Today, as our panelists, we have, of course, Mr. John Wyndham to my immediate left. He serves as the Executive Director of the Electronic Health Record Modernization Program Executive Office. Dr. Ash Zanuz serves as the Chief Medical Officer of the EHR Modernization Program Executive Office. And Mr. John Short serves as the Chief Technology Officer for that very same office. They are here today to answer some questions we fielded from the HIMSS members and industry partners. To get us started, I'll have some questions focused on VA and DoD interoperability. Is there any immediate statement you want to make, sir?
Well,
or we just jump into the...
A lot of people in the audience that know me know I'm never at a loss for words, so just a couple of statements. Number one is many thanks to my team, the VA, and in the Department of Defense, because I can assure you it's been a partnership as we have really evolved the requisite requirements that our veterans deserve in support of fulfilling the vision of Secretary Shulkin regarding the DNF that you just highlighted, the determination and findings. I also want to say, and I always say this for the record, is the government's official position will always be in writing. So what we say on the panel, I like to think is going to be 100% accurate, but until you see it in writing, please don't take it as the gospel, as my mother would say. So that's what I would say. Again, thanks for having us. We look forward to the interaction.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, sir. So let me just jump right into this great question that we got from a HIMSS member. Is I've recently read that the VA has spent significant time reviewing the lessons learned from other EHR implementations such as DoD and the U.S. Coast Guard. Can you describe how that shaped your vision?
Yeah, I'll start it off, and I can assure you the people to my left are much smarter than I, so I would ask that Ash weigh in from a clinical perspective and John weigh in from a technical perspective. I had the pleasure of leading the DoD's acquisition effort under DIMSM that is presently aggressively being deployed now and again remains at the forefront of continuing to understand their challenges, their successes, and incorporating them into our contract vehicle. There is no perfect contract. Anybody that thinks they've written one has never written one. But I can assure you the contract vehicle that we've written has leveraged, the Coast Guard experiences, the commercial experiences of what a successful EHR implementation would look like. Unfortunately, because there's so few of them that have been performed on the federal government side, the challenges that the federal government faces are often unique from the commercial environment. This remains a change management effort of epic proportions, a business transformation like no other. But I can assure you those similar deployment events that are taking place in the commercial environment as well as in the federal space are being looked at daily by our teams. And again, that's why I thank the DoD, because we are picking their brain constantly for that input. And so with that, let me pause there and see what John and Ash have to say regarding that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what I would say is that we've been engaged with DoD since before we released the DNF. They've been incredible partners. We have a lot of lessons learned from their implementation. We have lessons learned on how they set up their governance, how they interacted with the frontline staff on developing their workflows. We engaged in an effort with them prior to even announcing the Cerner negotiations when we were looking at IEHR, where we co-developed joint workflows with DoD, and much of that, hasn't gone to waste because we were able to now bring that back into this process. So we have hundreds of workflows. I want to say on the order of 600 that we will be taking from DoD and bringing it over into the VA portfolio as we evaluate the workflows, in this session. So I think there's continued constant partnership, and I think if you're, moving towards a single common platform or a single instance, you can't get there by working in silos. So our goal is to be aligned at every level and have governance and decision making at the lowest level so that we're not caught in bureaucracy. Our goal, at least in this program, is to make things, I wouldn't say as simple as possible, as complex as this process is. I think interacting with your colleagues across over in the DoD doesn't have to be complex.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
I would also concur with John and Ash and add to it a different piece of a detail, and that is the unique ability that we had to do alpha negotiations that the Secretary gave us from the, as Ash said, DNF, the determination of findings document that allowed us to go directly to Cerner to follow on with DoD's direction, was that we were actually to take those lessons learned where DoD said A, B, and C were very helpful, glad we did it. X, Y, and Z we would have done a little bit differently. How would you have done differently? And we were able to go through our requirements when we developed the acquisition documents and requirements, and right along with Cerner developed the contract to allocate for those and to take care of those as we went along. So we were able to step through every one of those lessons learned to fine-tune it even better as we went along, thanks to that partnership from DoD.
Fantastic.
I just want to add one thing because both John and Ash stimulated this, is the contract is not going to manage itself. And so regardless of all the lessons learned that we are gathering and incorporating into our contract, the program management oversight that we're responsible for in ensuring that the taxpayers' interests, and not only the active duty members that are going to be, because every active duty member ultimately becomes a veteran. So, but our oversight is essential. And therefore, as I like to say, having physicists grading physics homework. So I've got to have physicists in my portfolio grading the physics homework of Cerner for us to be successful. And properly managing, everybody wants to say cost, schedule, and performance, because those are the buzzwords. But it's also the risk portfolio that comes with this, where we've got to be vigilant in understanding where our challenges are going to exist and apply the requisite resources there. So I would say, in principle, that's probably the most important element of what we've been learning.
That's fantastic. So we touched on a little bit, but with all the focus on data sharing and interoperability, how do you keep the veteran, active duty service member, the family member, the retiree, and any caregiver in the middle of at the center of the care that's delivered?
Yeah, again, because I get to work with these folks, and I'm going to let them give you a more detailed answer. I think every day we walk through the doors of the VA, there's plaques all over the place that inspire us daily about the importance of the veterans. When you read the media, when you read the challenges that the veteran uniquely has, my dad's a veteran, I'm a veteran of 30 years of naval service. There's probably no one in this audience that doesn't have a family member or a friend that is a veteran. And so every time we speak or interact, someone typically has a personal story. Right. And if you haven't walked through a VA medical center before, walk through a VA medical center. Because I promise you, you will get engaged by people who are just a pleasure to talk to and need our support every step of the way in ensuring that they have the care that in many cases they've often fought for to have as part of their, if you will, post-active duty life. So there's so many reminders around us daily, in particular people talking to us, people that want to be involved, people that understand the importance of this mission. There is no one out here that would say the veterans aren't important. So that's a great start for us. Right. And we just continue to try to carry that understanding into our requirements development process, to our understanding what the veterans' not only present needs are, but long-term needs are. And I think that keeps us inspired. And I'll pass down to Ash and John for any additional remarks.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's no point in doing this if you don't keep the veteran at the center of everything you do.
Right.
For a long time, I think we were kind of focused on provider environments, how to make it easy for providers, how to have seamless care for providers, for hospitals. You know, I was recently in the ER for something, and I noticed it was like the monitors just kept beeping over my head. And I thought to myself, wow, are they trying to alert me that something is wrong with me, or are they trying to alert somebody at the nursing station? Why are they beeping the monitors above my head, right? So I think we have to redesign our, not just our electronic medical record, but the entire process, how care is delivered, to make it more veteran patient-centric, right? People-centric.
Right.
And I think for this particular program, what we have to think about is we are an enabler of providing an integrated system of care. And the way you do that is to deliver a value enhancing IT platform, right? It has to add value, and what that means is you have to keep the patient at the center of everything you do, everything you develop, everything you deliver. You have to have, you know, standards and terminology, because you can't be interoperable. You can't exchange data if we're not all speaking the same language, right? And you have to be able to deliver the data so that it's available to people when they need it, when they need to use it, to deliver the care that's required. Because at the end of the day, it's about delivering care with the outcome in mind. And I think lastly, you have to build a system, or you have to have a system where you can extract information, that things are not siloed, right? You have to be able to extract information so that you're able to provide analytics. You're able to build and use your machine learning tools to take it to where you need to, so that you're actually thinking ahead. You're thinking, you know, how do I do preventative care? It's not just about like taking care of the person now and putting it into a system. We're not here to build a Microsoft Word for us to input stuff into. The goal is to build a system so that it has analytics capabilities, registries, et cetera, so that you're providing like good care for our veterans, so you have, you know, better outcomes. You have to have metrics, not because you're meeting CMS requirements or you're going to get MU reimbursement, but at the end of the day, the whole goal of like measuring metrics is, you know, did this diabetic patient not just have their hemoglobin A1C checked, but did they lose their vision? You know, were they able to have proper functioning? Are they able to maintain their function? Like, those are the things we need to be thinking about. So as we develop the system, talk about interoperability, have discussions about technology, these are just tools. And if you don't keep your veterans and your patients at the center of everything you design and develop, there's no point in doing it. We might as well just continue on as we are. Why waste the money?
And how did we do that? So as we went through negotiating things with Cerner, we had decision points to make. It was always, how's that going to affect the veteran? If we have A, B, and C choice, and we said, well, we kind of like COA A rather than COA B, but maybe COA B was better for the veteran. Then we had to figure out how we get to COA B whenever possible, make it better for the veteran, right? So we constantly use that as decision points along the way. One example of that, like the patient portal. So they're like, well, okay, we would create a separate patient portal for VA. No. We want a soldier to leave the military uniform one day, suit the next day, and be able to log in the exact same way to the warfighting patient portal as the veteran patient portal, except the logo would go from a DoD logo to a VA logo, but everything's there, making things seamless for the veteran for care.
Fantastic. So you're getting back to the process a little bit of your path to where we are today. You talk about using the physicists to grade the physics tests. In December, the VA announced an additional external assessment of national interoperability terms contained in the RFP. We understand that MITRE Corporation conducted this assessment and recently submitted a report to the VA. Can you talk a little bit about the process that they went through to get to conduct this external assessment, and then also following up on the MITRE assessment report, can each of you share a little bit about what was most surprising or interesting and what you learned?
So, you know, the term due diligence is often used. This is a case of due diligence. What we're about to do and what we're about to undertake in awarding a contract to Cerner Corporation, which in my mind is absolutely the right thing to do. The DNF that Secretary Shokin signed out back on June 5th, we followed to the letter of that document. The MITRE report, and again, I've heard the term strategic pause for us. I can assure you my team hasn't paused, and if they have, I didn't see it. It's additional due diligence. It's dotting the I's and crossing the T's. It's making sure that you don't rest on your own laurels. It's making sure that you don't enter into groupthink. It's valuing outside of opinions. It's being transparent. All of those things that people like to say, we did as part of this, if you will, 30-day additional assessment of the area of interoperability. It solidified our requirements. It facilitated some changes in our interoperability language. Not drastic changes, but changes that allowed us to position ourselves for where the interoperability spectrum may take us, whether it be fire technology, whether it be any of the latest and greatest interoperability solutions or protocols or technology. The EHR contract we're going to enter into is going to be ready to receive it. And I think that's important because obviously our greatest leverage is in the negotiation process, not post-contract award. So getting those experts that you've seen on the stage time and time again to look at our product, to look at it with a new set of eyes and lenses, and then challenge us on our rationale, I think only made our interoperability language better. I think the MITRE report reflects that. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is that when these industry experts came in and read our language and reviewed our RFP, I will tell you about 95% of the comments were, you got Cerner to agree to do that? And that's a reflection of the technical expertise and the clinical expertise that each of these people have on their team. And again, our willingness to not be fearful of someone scrutinizing our products. And so I think that will continue, not only until we award the contract, but even post-award. Because when we start resting on our laurels is when we start making mistakes, and we stop keeping our veterans at the forefront of each and every day we ought to be trying to give them something better. And so this contract award would just be the start of something better. So over to you, Ash.
I don't have a whole lot to add, except that I was so excited that there were so many external experts that were willing to come in. I felt like people were tripping over themselves to come in and engage with us, to look at our RFP, to give us lessons learned. Technology is constantly evolving. I mean, even for us, we're in this space looking at this all day long. I discover new things every day that are coming out that are going to help the veterans. And I think bringing in these external experts, whether it's through MITRE or any other avenue, it allows us to bring technology that, you probably wouldn't have thought of if it was just, internal folks looking at it to our veterans. So I think the contract has a lot of space to bring in new innovation and new technology, and I think bringing in these external expertise only allows for that to continue. So I was just, I love the enthusiasm of everybody that wants to engage, and I think we continue to value that and want people to come in and help us. So
I completely concur with all the comments. It was really amazing that we had so much concurrence by the outside panel. This was actually the third outside panel that we had gone through. So it wasn't just one outside panel. While we're doing our main negotiations, we had reviews going on to fine tune and hone down what we were doing to make it better and better. It's probably one of the reasons why this last panel was like, wow. And it was, but at the same time, they were also able to show us a few areas where we could do some tweaks, agree with Cerner on those, to make it even better for the industry as a whole.
So I'll just add one comment. Yesterday I saw something from Cerner that was tweeted out. We have been thinking about bringing in external experts into this process, not because we don't have people on the inside that are incredible. So I want to make sure I emphasize this. We have incredible people inside of VA that have expertise in Vista, expertise in in understanding and coding this, but I think bringing in outside people to leverage and work with us just amplifies all of the things that we're able to do. So I know that Cerner is pushing for the National Coordination Center to come out, engage experts, and to bring folks in and work with us. I think it's just one avenue I think the panels that come on, the advisory boards or other avenues, and we're thrilled. So I'm really excited that there's so much external support on this.
And you can, just from the interest in the crowd here, as well as the buzz throughout the show floor and throughout the halls, I think folks are ready to help in any way and learn in any way. So,
Can I make a comment on that? And I appreciate that.
Sure.
Because I can assure you we need more help, okay? The oversight arm is going to be just incredibly complex. If I were advising you, those that may be interested in supporting us or becoming part of this team, the advice I would offer is understand our strategy. Read the RFP. Understand where Vista stands and understand where we're trying to go. And then come to us with a value statement. How can you get us where we're trying to go? And how do you add value to the process? That value can come in the form of cost savings, efficiencies in schedule, products that make us better. But I can assure you, and we will take you seriously, it doesn't matter small business, large business, that value proposition on how you can help us deliver is the first thing that we typically ask. So be willing and ready to tell us that. And that typically comes with an education of what we're trying to do. And I can assure you there's enough information out there in our respective portals, Fed Biz Ops, et cetera, that explain what we're trying to do. So I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. So in terms of just a primer of what might be out there, is this strictly to try and streamline the VA, or is this really about what we all kind of see on the horizon as changing, helping to transform healthcare?
Yeah, just by our sheer size, we're going to help transform healthcare. I think that's incredible. I let them worry about that. Okay, I worry about the veterans and I worry about the active duty service members. A person who has just transitioned out of the military, the 30 years that I spent was easier than moving my medical information. Okay? I don't want anybody to ever have to experience what I experienced in trying to move that across. So I guess I would offer, this is an iterative process. We are not going to go from where we are now to national interoperability overnight. It's an iterative process. John Short can give you all the details, but I know we've got 130 disparate systems within VA. I know we don't have seamless interoperability between DOD and VA, even though JLV has been phenomenal, Joint Legacy Viewer. I know we don't have interoperability between the community providers that presently support us. And so we've got a lot of challenges that are subsets of the national interoperability pursuit. We will be attacking all of these in parallel. But I can tell you, near and dear to me is the seamless movement and accountability of the care being delivered as an active duty to an active duty soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, and ensuring the veterans' clinical treatment facilities have access to that information and have the accurate healthcare history of that individual. Right. And so those are at the forefront for me. And I think if we keep building on that foundational block, we're going to get to where we want to go. And again, it goes back to that value statement. We will continue to leverage advancements in technology. That's part of the contract. We will continue to be able to bring in those experts that can contribute to us being better than where we are now or anticipate being in the short term. So with that, let me pass it back down to Ash.
So, I mean, I agree with John. We're not going to get there overnight, but our veterans, and I mean, all of us, we don't just go to one place to get care, right? Our veterans are coming in from the military. They're getting care in our VA sites. And at the same time, I mean, it's not like they're leaving the VA to go somewhere and never coming back. There's active exchange. They're getting only part of their care out in the community and part of their care within VA. So I think we can't help but affect national interoperability in this process, right? So I think, at the end of the day, we have to look at this. The VA system is a large integrated system with care across a large continuum. And this process is going to leverage having a longitudinal record for the patient across all of these points of care. So we are a microsystem, microcosm of the rest of what's happening. But a veteran is like anybody else. They're getting their care in multiple sites. So you want that longitudinal record. And whether the patient owns the data or not, the place where they are seeking their primary care is responsible for managing their care. And that happens to be the VA right now for the veterans. We are at the center of the veterans' point of care. So we have to ensure that we're building a learning health system, that we are constantly engaging not just the VA, but everybody else, and sharing data and sharing care plans and learning about how things are being delivered. And I think in that process, we're going to push everybody else to do the same. So if it's only one-way transfer of data from VA out to our referring providers or referral systems, we're not going to get there. So I think, it's not that we're mandating or, anything else, but I think just the process of sending people back and forth encourages people to share data, not just out of the VA, but to bring data into the VA. And I think just that process as it evolves, first you have direct connections, you have, health information exchanges. You just heard about, APIs. And as we move to open APIs and leveraging our APIs to get care, to get the data at the point of care, all of these things are going to be applicable to everybody else out there. And I, for one, I'm not a veteran, but I am really, really excited to one day be able to have all of my data be available to me to get care anywhere I want to, maybe on my iPhone. I mean, I don't think that's so far away, and I think we're going to help move the needle in that direction.
I would add that several of the things that we've negotiated will be pushing the envelope on healthcare in general as well as interoperability, so that, because it's part of the commercial platform, will obviously have an impact across the nation and around the world. In addition to that, we have an innovation section inside of our acquisition documents as a backlog of things we've prioritized from the functional community to accentuate and improve on that even more. And so as we authorize Cerner to move forward on that portion of the innovations, that'll also continue to push the entire healthcare industry forward for healthcare, interoperability, technical, security, functionality, overall.
So tying into that a little bit, then maybe we could segue to the second component of your comments. I was a special assistant to Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs when we transitioned from CHCS1 to CHCS2, and the big complaint was we left providers, clinicians were left out of the conversation. I hear that from time to time that acquisitions and improvements here, within the government and also, in the community, don't bring the providers, the clinicians into the discussion early enough. Are you taking steps to make sure you learn from the scars that others have endured over the years?
So I'm going to pass that one to Ash first, and then I'll give follow-up conversation, but she's very passionate about that subject. Ash?
Well, look, I'm a practicing clinician. I've been on the ground, on the front lines for, a long time. And I think if you don't have people on the front lines engaged, you're going to fail. This is you don't need a lessons learned for this. It's just common sense. And so what I'll say is from the get-go of this transformation, we've had not just clinicians, not just your doctors, your nurses, your dental providers, your PT folks engaged in this process, but I think you also have to bring in your other frontline staff, your schedulers, your folks that are interacting, your business folks, your folks that are thinking about your revenue cycle. If you don't bring them all into integrated systems where you're thinking through these as you develop your requirements, as you develop your workflows, you're going to fail. And I think at the VA, I remember the first conversation I had for lessons learned with DOD. And that was the first thing they said to us. And I was so excited. I thought, of course, we don't want to be left out of the conversation because technology, at the end of the day, is just a tool. Right. If you don't bring the people that are going to be using it into the conversation, it's going to fail. So at least in this process, during the initial phase, we brought in about 200 subject matter experts from the field like I said, not just clinicians, but business folks to develop our high-level requirements as we move through the process. We did have central office folks that are looking at this from a strategic perspective, also sitting at the table to ensure it tied in with our larger strategy. And as we move forward into the next phase, which is deep dives into the product, deep dives into identifying gaps, looking at what else is out there, what do we need to bring in that meets the needs of the frontline staff to provide the best care that's needed, the only way you can do that is to have them at the table. You have to have an enterprise strategy, and then you have to make sure that it works at the local levels. And you can't do that by involving people across your large enterprise. It's a little bit more difficult for us, and we have to always remind ourselves in the VA because of our size and our scale. We have 170 medical centers and outpatient centers associated with it, our SNFs and other facilities. But we are actively seeking out folks to come in and work on our teams, and I think that's been the best part of being in this job because I feel like an evangelist for all of these folks. It's been great.
Oh, excellent.
I have less to say on this one, but except I fully support it, obviously. But we also brought in a lot of the legacy Vista coders to help develop large portions of Vista because they have a lot of knowledge. They'd worked with the functional staff developing this stuff for years. And so they were right there on the ground as we were doing assessments and developing requirements. So we make sure we had all pieces and facets addressed.
So you heard the passion on their side. I would say that the real proof that the top leadership in the VA supports the commitment to that is the development of this PEO. The OIT VHA silo that was perceived to exist is all under one umbrella called the PEO, where OIT assets, VHA assets have come together to solve this problem. I couldn't have been more impressed and haven't been more impressed with the integrated thought processes of those people that have been provided to us from OIT, that have been provided us from VHA to pursue just what they've spoken to, which it's about the clinician's ability to deliver care. If we give them tools that they don't want to use, don't understand, don't want, they won't use them. Right. Then we would not be judicious users of the taxpayers' money. So that's part of our integrated efforts every day under the PEO umbrella, and I think the commitment to the standing up of that organization is absolutely proof positive that we're committed to an integrated way of thinking.
Fantastic. So in terms of, let me follow up a little bit. What steps is the EHRM program taking to ensure the proper oversight takes place throughout the modernization process over the course of the 5 or so years that we've got ahead of us?
Yeah, I mean, you heard me speak to it earlier. We've got a tremendous risk management portfolio where we are looking at all aspects of what a deployment, implementation, integration. Keep in mind, we're going to be running the legacy system simultaneously with the new EHR implementation. That alone inspires the perception of quality of care being impacted. The program management office has to be proactive, preemptive, not reactive, not crisis-oriented. And so our strategies revolve around predictive analytics to where we can hopefully understand what may happen and prevent it from happening before it does. That's squarely in the program management office portfolio. Again, goes back, physicists grading physics homework, and that's across the myriad of disciplines. The number of disciplines that are involved in the implementation of this electronic health record is really too many to count. And oh, by the way, the challenges that we can anticipate are probably have not yet been fully captured. So we've got to continue to be assessing our own homework, monitoring where things may likely occur, and bringing on the requisite expertise into our portfolio that allows us to combat those prospective casualties before they occur. I'm counting on Ash and John, clinical, functional, to be thinking about these things and engaging people like you in advance to understand where those problem areas may exist, and then letting me know, and us going through the appropriate acquisition processes to get those experts in our portfolio so we'll be ready to combat them. Sure, Cerner's a phenomenal team, but they're the contractor. We are the accountable agents for the taxpayers and for the VA. And so, though they are important to have an integrated understanding, and it's going to be an incredible partnership in moving forward, we have to take our role seriously, and I can assure you we are. So, Ash?
So what would you say to the HIE or the community hospital that's out there, or or even the vendors that are out there that are listening today? What should they be prepared for, whether there's changes to their systems or changes to their vision to be ready to work with you once you've started implementing the new EHR?
Yeah, I'll let John start off with that one. Why don't you go ahead, John?
So we've had phenomenal growth in all the connections with HIEs and in exchanging data with different medical centers around the country. It's been accelerating even faster. I see Dr. Margaret Donahue out here. She's always pushing really hard to grow that. But what we need is greater sharing. We don't need 1 million additional medical centers sharing 10 pieces of data. We need everyone that we have now and all the ones in the future to share all their data. So everyone needs to really work on building all those. Instead of getting a CCDA with 10 pieces of data domains in there, we need all 70, I think it's 76, all built out. All the documents, the radiology reports, the lab reports, the pathology reports, all the documents, all that data needs to be shared. Because without that, then you're looking at a patient with an incomplete picture. And then the radiologist has to do a duplicate test, potentially. So we need all that data sharing to speed up care. If we don't get it right away, we have to specially ask for it. That means someone may be strapped to a board for an extra couple hours because we're waiting to get a radiology report. Is their neck broken or not? We need this data shared. So if people can work on sharing all their data, not blocking data, and proactively doing that for the veterans especially, of course everyone wants to share, but for us, for the veteran, that's really what we need to do.
I completely agree with that, and I think you have to have. I know that there are laws on information blocking, but really, at the end of the day, there's nothing that says here's all of the data you must share, right? Like we just have to share all the data. But I think also we're at a new place in time. I think where we can have our government partners, our legislators, and our business folks that are in the hospital systems come up with new payment models and revenue models. Like we should not be incentivizing holding on to data at the hospital level. And I think, from our perspective, we're going to push for policies and we're going to push people to think out of the box on how do you incentivize the hospital systems to share data and reward them for that rather than the other way around. And I think for too long, we've focused on holding on to that data in one hospital system and having repeat customers at that hospital system. We want to encourage the health plans to think through the same way. So to me, I would say, if you're a vendor, come to us on, developing standards for your APIs on things that we want to we want to leverage that to bring in more data at the point of care. If you're an ACO or a hospital system, work with CMS, CMMI to think about new payment models and how we can, reward people for data. Come to us on new policy ideas or things that we can support on behalf of our veterans that we can push and make it easy for. Following HIPAA guidelines, following all of the different things that there are to protect the patients. If the patients want to share their data, we want to encourage that. And I think come to us with things where it's going to make data more easily available, information, not just data, digestible information available to the patient, so that they can make more informed decisions about their care. I think all of you have probably heard about Choose VA. It's our initiative where we are encouraging, the Secretary is encouraging people, veterans, to choose VA. It's just because you have a VA benefit doesn't mean you have to come to the VA to get the benefit. You now have a choice to go outside for care. But we want to encourage, give us the tools so that we can have accurate, reliable data that we can put out there so we can show how well we're doing. We do provide quality care in VA, and I think if we can show that, if we can have people come to us with all of their ideas on how we can show and put accurate data out there, we can encourage our veterans to say, this is a pretty good system. We want to have you come in and get care in the VA.
I also wanted to add that we also need industry to move quicker to new technologies like bulk fire data APIs, so the entire patient record can be extracted from one institution to another instead of getting pieces and parts, dribs and drabs. We need to be able to, for everyone to move that type of standard, so we can grab an entire longitudinal record, combine it with ours, so that so the functional staff can see the entire picture, not a slice of it.
Sure.
And also multiple patient records. So
Yeah,
it's not
so-
you're not just pulling one record at a time. You're getting bulk access to all of the patients that are being cared for in the system, to all of their data.
So you can hear they're the visionaries. From a practical perspective for me, we want to move at a rate that doesn't negatively impact our veterans. And we also have to balance the implementation, the pivoting, the transitioning from legacy systems to our new technology. And so I can assure you, and I just want to just continue to say it, from a program management oversight perspective, we're going to be judicious that we move at the appropriate rates with the appropriate plans, whether it's the movement of data. We know how great the Cerner Healthy Intent platform is, but it's new to our portfolio.
Right.
And so we want to make sure we are dotting the I's, crossing the T's, doing the appropriate due diligence. And, and I just wanted to make sure I emphasize that. So.
Absolutely, sir. So as we begin to look at what the interoperability component that ONC has been talking about for their plans for 2018, are you guys working together? Are they off in a silo somewhere doing TEFCA, and you've got other plans, or what's happening there?
Yeah, I'll start off with, we just met with ONC last week. Now I'll turn it over to John.
Okay.
So we've had several meetings with ONC as the EHR Modernization Office for many months, and as we were developing requirements and developing contract with Cerner, even though a lot of industry didn't know a lot of what ONC was doing yet, some stuff was public, some stuff not, we were incorporating what was coming as we developed the contract, so it would be framed the right way, as well as when the TEFCA for public comment was released, we made sure that was included to comply with all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me add, the one thing that I was encouraged about in all of my meetings with ONC is their willingness to put out their plan to industry for comment. Okay, I think that's essential. I promoted that while I was in DOD.
Right.
Is that, through draft RFPs, draft iterations of documents, ONC is doing that. And so I encourage you to comment back. Okay, if you're taking exception to something or you're encouraged by something, comment back, because I can assure you we're reviewing those comments and we're taking them seriously. Ash, were you going to jump in there?
So I think ONC has been an incredible partner with us since the inception of this PEO. But it's not just ONC. We have multiple federal partners that are working with us. And I think you've all heard the announcement that we are working, government-wide on bringing interoperability to make it a priority.
Right.
And this is not just a VA priority, but we bring a really important piece. ONC brings in the brains and the policies that are doing it. We have data. We have people that are in the system that are using it. So when we partner multiple institutions together that have the policy arm, the payment arm, the provider arm, the payer arm, I think you can have iterative processes to make things better faster, right? So it's been a great partnership. We support a lot, we are very supportive, providing commentary, and in turn we get the same back. How do we implement the things that they are pushing forward so that it can get adopted into the system and into the industry? We have a method to do that, as does, DOD, right? We are providers of care, and we can actively participate in this process. So this isn't going to stop with just what they're doing now. I think we're going to continue to work on it with ONC, with CMS, with the larger HHS system, with DOD, with DHA on biosurveillance. With Department of Energy on computing, where we're working with them on genomics data. So I think there's a lot of opportunities across the federal government for us to collaborate.
How does it tie in then to the veterans organizations, at the state level? Are they active participants in the discussion too, or like the state veterans organization? Or
So, yes, we have been very engaged with the state veterans organizations. We've been engaged with the veteran service organizations at those levels, bringing all of the stakeholders to the table.
Yeah.
Before this project and during, right? So the VA, I think the VA as a system cannot do well if you don't bring those stakeholders to the table. Much of the care for our veterans does extend out to the state and local community areas. So it's not just the private practice community care providers that are engaging with us. It's, the state veterans homes are an important part of where we provide care for our veterans, and, how we work with them, how we share our data, how we have information exchanged across our system is integral, and they're at the table on this.
Fantastic. So I guess my final question really is, if you look at Politico or any of the other headlines that are out there, you've got an engaged secretary in this conversation. I've been in and around government for a while myself. To me, talk to how important it is to have the senior leadership of the organization actively supportive of your effort.
Yeah, I don't read.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I got enough acquisition documents to
Sure,
read,
sure,
so I don't read it. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to let Ash start off, and then I'll try to clean up whatever she says.
Sure. Okay.
Look, I think we wouldn't have gotten here without Secretary Shulkin. The fact that he had the vision, the determination, and the push to sign this DNF tells me that he's a vision. He's thinking, he's thinking beyond where we are now. Like, where do we get VA to somewhere? He's thinking about like the national stage, and we started off obviously with the DNF with VA DoD interoperability, and within VA interoperability. But obviously, the discussions have gone out to our community providers and how we're going to exchange our data across the system with our academic partners, and none of that would have been. None of those discussions would have happened without the secretary supporting and pushing, forming the PEO, and giving us the resources. So, and it doesn't hurt that he's a practicing clinician. So when we engage in discussions with him, having, do we just exchange PAMPI data, or do we really want like all of the data exchanged? Not that other people don't know what that means, but somebody who's actually seeing patients.
Right.
You know what data you need as an internal medicine clinician who's seeing patients. You don't want to just know about somebody's allergies. You know that you need more to take care of the person better. So I think having an engaged clinician who is still providing care, it's great.
Oh.
I'll add to that the secretary also had announced during a hearing that he put the PEO under the DepSec. So having that level of leadership to focus the organization on and to make sure it's not being siloed in one or part of the organization or another, at least as the initial inception to get really things started and situated and the cornerstone set, really critical. And having that attention, as you see it, it allows things to accelerate, move much faster. The big rocks are being moved out of the way. Everyone in the organization understands how critical it is, how important it is, and how the high priority it is. That it helps us move faster and quicker.
Yeah, I guess, and I agree with everything Ash and John said. I guess I would offer, it's hard being on the side of right.
Right.
I think the Secretary's decision was a phenomenal and visionary decision. That was a tough one to make. And so I temper any reading that I do with the fact that we are on the side of right.
Right.
We are doing what's best for our veterans and our active duty service members alike. And I couldn't be more proud to have been put in a post-military career to where I continue to be able to support the veterans who are like me, the veterans that have come before me, and obviously the veterans that'll come after me. And so what we're doing today and what we'll achieve, there's no doubt in my mind we're going to close the deal, because it's the right thing to do. So all of the I dotting, the T crossing, the articles that we often have to refute or rebut are just part of doing something hard and complex, and we're willing to address it, and we'll continue to be transparent, and then we'll go off and we'll implement this thing the right way. And again, As I've said before, we don't have all of the answers, but I know many of you out in the audience have a number of answers that are going to benefit us. This journey is going to be just that. But we look forward to the challenge here on the stage. I can assure you of that, and we'll move out.
Well, on behalf of HIMSS and all of the folks that are standing here and all of the folks that are out there in the hallways and across the communities, and as the son of a veteran, and you're right. I've got an active duty nephew in the Navy and an active duty niece in the Army. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for what you're endeavoring to do, and we're all here to help you. So thank you all for a great day.
Thank you so much.
You.